the concept of what we're doing is really wanted to sit down and have, I guess you call them recorded conversations, long form conversations with people about topics that I find really interesting, or but specifically have been helpful for me to kind of learn and grow and gain new perspective.
Okay.
And one of those things for me has been, um, dealing with your daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just say that, I felt a certain way, and I kind of feel like, in just from what I hear from other people and in the media, and I can lump myself in with that people feel a certain way about the topic,
Mm-hmm.
and you have your preconceived notions, and you think, oh, this is what I would do in that situation, and then you're confronted with somebody who you know personally or you meet, and they change your mind.
Yeah. Or your own kid comes to you.
Exactly, and I kind of that's why I wanted to ask you to come, because I mean you've in the middle of this journey,
Yep.
and I've seen. I'm glad that I knew you before knew the journey that you're on, because I was able to see you as a parent
Mm-hmm.
and how you parent, and that you're a good parent, and then see
Try.
you go through all the BS that
Yeah.
comes along with that.
Yeah.
So I kind of wanted to, just hear what your thoughts were and give you a platform to speak and just listen, and hopefully, I can learn something from you that, um, and I'm just hopeful that that would help other people as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I think, knowing you, not everyone knows you,
Right.
and there's even people in this neighborhood that don't really know you, but I've
Yeah.
heard them make comments,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes to your face.
They know the name.
Exactly. So it's, yeah. So I guess I would, if you're comfortable, we can just start with saying, like, tell me a little bit about the journey. Like, how did it start? What kind of kicked it off?
Okay. Yeah, that's always my favorite story to tell. I guess, when I guess if we go back to when I was pregnant with her, I had picked out the name Jameson and really wanted a girl and wanted to name her Jameson.
Oh, really?
And then we found out right away we were having a boy. So I was like, well, that's still on the table. And we kicked around a couple others. Like Avery was one, which
I don't
nobody,
think of Jameson as a boy's name for sure.
right. I think I was like, that's going to be the coolest girl in school.
Yeah.
Like, So we kicked around other names and we weren't fully decided. But I can tell you that pregnancy, like she had a mind of her own, that I was sick. That's when I had my thyroid problems. I had a 2-year-old at home. And then even up to like the very end, like when she just came when she wanted to, my water broke. Like, she was like, nope, I'm coming. Mason didn't even believe me. So
Was that early or late?
it was right on
Right
time.
on.
It was really, it was time. But he was just like, no, it didn't break. And he's like, are you sure you didn't pee? And this kid is coming, whether we want it to or not. So, and like the epidural didn't work. Like there was a whole thing. Even the nurse didn't believe me when it was time. I'm like, something's happening. And she's like, I just checked you. You're fine. And I'm like, something's happening. And she looked under the covers and went screaming into the hallway. Like,
This baby's coming.
this baby's coming. And she's like, well, yep, that happened fast. So, and it was just, she was a force like the whole time, like, sleeping. I mean, she was a good baby, but like, I don't know, just different than the first. So, and then as she got older, and we all would, even Ryland, we would watch Sophia the 1st and, really girly cartoons and stuff, which I'm like, all right, I like this one.
I played with Barbies as a kid, so
yeah, exactly.
I don't think that's abnormal.
Well, and Ryland did too.
I did a lot of other stuff too, but
yeah,
I played with Barbies. I don't know.
Right. I mean, I have pictures of Ryland even in like heels in one of my purses.
Yeah.
Like they're kids, like,
Yeah.
and we, whatever.
You do goofball stuff.
And there was one Easter before we even moved here that I bought her a big stuffed pink My Little Pony for Easter. And at first she cried, and I was like, "What? You love pink and you love My Little Ponies? What did I do?" And then she loved that pony.
Why did she cry, do you think?
I don't know. I think because maybe she was a boy, and I'm pretty sure it was said like, but that's not boyish. And I'm like, well, but you like it. Who cares what it is? Like, who cares? So then, when I would catch her playing in my makeup, I mean, it was just nonstop painting her nails. I have Facebook memories painting her nails. And I was like, who cares? Boys can wear nail polish too. I don't care. And
So you felt like you were trying to be like non-judgmental or
yeah,
not like pushing them a certain way, let them
right.
be free to do what they wanted.
Yeah. Yeah. If your kid is into Barbies, are you not just going to buy some Barbies and next week maybe they're into Pokemon? We don't
Yeah,
know. So you just, I guess that's just,
it's really interesting for me to hear you say that because I like to think that I would act like that I would be like that,
yeah.
but I would say fortunate enough because that's I guess that's judgmental too. But I would say I didn't have those I wasn't confronted with those kind of conundrums because uh, Brady was constantly playing with swords and
You're
kung fu.
right.
I mean, he
Right.
was like if he didn't get a Nerf gun or a sword or some sort of weapon, he was super pissed. So I never
Yeah.
really was confronted with that. And Addison was really into
Yeah.
typically girl stuff.
Girl
So
stuff. Right.
I was never really confronted with that.
Yeah. See, and I guess I mean, at the time it was like, whatever, who
Yeah.
cares? And then it was when we moved into this neighborhood, there was a Halloween, um, and she wanted to wear a princess dress for Halloween.
And what year was that?
That was 2016.
So how old was she then? Like
She
11,
was
10,
four.
4. Oh, my math's wrong.
Uh-huh. She's 11 now. Yeah, she was 4 because um, right? She was born in
I
12.
still think that's pretty normal for
Yeah.
kids to want to wear a
Yeah.
dress.
And it's
Not
Halloween.
like it's normal, like every kid's out in a dress, but
Well,
it's not
right.
like something that would make you say
Yeah.
that would give you reason for concern.
Well, that was our point. I'm like, well, my point. I was like, it's Halloween. If you can't dress up, what good is it?
Yeah,
So we went to the consignment store. We found a dress. She tried it on, went running out to the driveway to show Mason, my ex-husband, and he laughed. And she came running in and said it was too itchy, and she refused to wear it. So she dressed up as a dragon that year in what had to have been the hottest costume ever because it's still 90 degrees in October. And I was like, okay, I was so mad that he laughed. So, and that's when I was like, but again, it's Halloween if you can't do this now. Well, then, yeah, she was 4. I'm trying to think of the timeline. Because, yeah, then 17, she started kindergarten. And it was towards the end of kindergarten year, or maybe towards the middle, she wanted to start wearing skirts.
like to school.
Well, she would go to school and apparently she would take an extra shirt and like slide it down over her waist, over her shorts, because they had uniforms at the time.
Yeah,
So it looked like a skirt. And the school was like, whatever, it's still a uniform shirt. We can't stop her.
I
And
think that was kind of right as uh,
when we met
those
you
like
guys,
conversations were starting about this topic,
yes,
like in not specific to you, but just in general in the country.
right.
Where I think the first time I kind of like you could feel that like things were changing was when companies were coming out with dress code policies saying like, well, if we say you're allowed to wear
Mm.
knee length dresses, then we can't say
Who can wear them?
men aren't allowed to wear that, and women are,
Right,
or traditional gender roles. It
right,
was more like we're saying a policy that people in general are allowed to wear this, and some people are choosing to wear. Some men are choosing to go to work in a knee length dress.
right,
I think that
right.
was kind of around, if I recall, it was kind of like around that time.
Probably.
So that's probably why they were.
I remember the bathroom bill being a big thing.
Yeah, when was that? Was that right around that time? Right.
Yeah, I think so because I just remember, I mean, having a gay friend, not that that's, but people were like, "Oh, a guy could just go into a girl's bathroom then." I'm like, "That's not the point." They're
Yeah.
saying just use the bathroom you feel most comfortable in. The thing that people were worried about is really predators, not
Yeah.
transgender people.
Yeah.
I mean, a transgender person doesn't care and is the last person to show you what's in their stall or under their clothes,
Right.
nor do they care what's under yours. So,
So how do you? I don't want to I don't want to get off topic, but how do you feel about that?
I always said, I don't, who cares? And honestly, to me, it was more, and maybe this is wrong of me to think, but I was thinking it's more of the people that pass that like Alexis does now. Like, you don't know. She goes to the women's restroom and you would never know
Yeah.
what anatomy she has. So, and to me, that's all it was, is that they wanted to use the bathroom they were most comfortable in. and I, like I said, I still said, who cares? Just let people do this. And I understand, like, you're more worried about a predator than a transgender person.
Yeah,
So,
I think I mean that's that I felt like that at the time, and I still I mean just to be honest, I feel still a little conflicted about it because on the one hand, like I feel like people that are just living their life and being transgender aren't really the cause. I don't think anyone's really that concerned about that.
no.
I think they're more concerned with here's a sexual predator who goes into a women's bathroom and because he's in there, he's
Right.
what are you going to do? Are you going to fight a guy off if you're in a compromised position. And I think,
Right.
that was where people I thought were, but it all got kind of lumped together as one issue.
Yeah. Like, we can't have men in the women's bathroom. And then it's just, I guess I don't know. I just never really understood why we have to make a law about it, because just go use the bathroom you're comfortable in.
People are really passionate about it.
Yeah.
I mean, and yeah, they're really passionate about it. I
Yeah.
mean, you know that.
Yeah. I know. And I never understood it. I was just like, I don't, I guess I never had to deal with it. I never, got attacked in a bathroom, thank goodness. But
Well, I know there has been. I believe I have seen articles of that happening. So I know it's not like it's never happened.
right.
And I feel like one of the reasons why I think a lot of people are frustrated is because there's like never an acknowledgement that that stuff does happen. It's like you can't even bring up a point without being labeled a hate monger, and then
Yeah.
it reinforces that people are uh, divided and divisive on one side of an issue.
Yes.
Whereas I honestly think the solution is this, like just having a conversation with regular people. It's like you're not here to stick your flag in the sand and say, predators should be in the women's bathroom. You're
Yeah.
just saying my daughter needs a place to use the restroom, and this
Right.
is awkward for everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
If
It's really weird to see her go into a boy's bathroom.
yeah, you're like, well, that's not right.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Yeah.
and that happened at school at first. She had to go use the staff or the nurse's restroom or a
Hmm.
single stall. She wasn't allowed to go in either the girls or the boys.
Yeah.
So, and it was upsetting to her and very othering because she's being called out in front
Yeah.
of her whole class can see. Why does she never go to the bathroom after lunch with everybody? Why does she
Yeah.
get one time she got locked in the staff bathroom when school was getting pulled out, and
Now she's traumatized.
she was in there crying. The teacher was crying. The teacher had to call me at work, and I'm like, she's fine.
Yeah.
She's going to be fine. But she's like, I didn't want
April's
to come
still
out.
terrified of using the bathroom because she got locked in there for 20 minutes. And she's still terrified
See?
every time.
See?
Adam, I'm going into the bathroom.
Yeah,
Make
David,
sure.
come get me in 10 if I'm not out.
Yeah.
Take your phone with you. Yeah, I mean, it had to be scary.
Well,
So,
also for someone that's struggling with their identity and not fitting in, and the entire world is telling you act this way, do this thing,
mhm.
and you're already like uncomfortable, and now on top of that, we're putting the spotlight on you, and
Yeah.
now you're the battleground. You're just trying to fit in and live your life, and now all of a sudden you're the battleground for every issue that pops up.
Yeah.
And that's got to be
Yeah.
that's got to be
Yeah, I
difficult.
had to go to the school every year at the beginning of the school year and be like, where's she going to go to the bathroom this year? Who's her teacher? Do they know?
Is that still an issue, or is that been
No,
resolved?
we made the decision. She made the decision going into the new intermediate school that we're just not going to say anything and I'm just going to go use the girls' bathroom. And I'm like, okay.
And that's been has that worked?
Uh-huh.
Oh,
It's
that's
I
good.
mean, she's been there a year. So at the end of last year, I did have to email the teacher because there was some kids in her class that were like saying, she's really a boy and like being really mean and I'm like, well, in my mind, yes, that's not okay, but they did know you before you transitioned,
Yeah.
and they know this about you and we're proud of who we are and we don't try to hide it. But she's like, yes, but they don't have to say that. It's very hurtful and now other people know that didn't know. And so I had to email the teacher at the end of the year and say, can you just talk to these boys? And she goes, and I told her, we made the decision to come in and just live as her
Yeah.
and not tell anybody. She goes, well, the fact that you made it till like the last 2 weeks of school, I think we can consider it a success.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, and it got handled and it was fine. But I mean,
I remember there was a family that lived in the neighborhood. I don't remember who it was, but they were playing, and the girl hadn't seen Alexis since had been some time that had passed where, because like when I met Jameson,
Hmm.
and then at some point
She became Alexis.
became Alexis, and I think there was like it was like before and then later, and so she kept calling Alexis Jameson,
Hmm.
and I could see that it was like bothering her, but at the same time, I was like, this is just a kid and doesn't really understand.
Right.
This is a complicated issue
It takes some
for a
time.
an 8 or 9 or 10 year old to
Yeah.
kind of comprehend.
Yeah, it is. It was hard. I mean,
I think
we,
it's difficult. It's difficult for as a 40-year-old to.
yeah, 100%. It took some time, and I don't know. And even my parents, when they were coming to visit, they're like, "Is she going to get upset if we mistakenly?" And I'm like, "No, she's never going to get upset. If it's an honest mistake and we understand it, you know." And they did amazing for not really ever being around the kids. Now, there's other people in the family that still to this day will call and be like, "How are the boys?"
Yeah,
he
intentionally.
yeah, but
Yeah,
it feels intentional. And when I bring it up, well, it's an honest mistake. Well, it's been like 6 years,
yeah.
so come on now.
I've kind of I would say I've changed my perspective on that because I was more, I don't know what the right word for it is, but like almost militant, like this is wrong. Um, to now it's like, listen, I don't care what your theology is. If you tell me to call you Bob, I'm going to call you Bob,
Right, right.
and that because you've asked me as respect. Now, if I call you, Mr. Peanut,
Yeah.
you're like, I don't really appreciate that, but I do it anyway. Like that's just a lack of respect,
Exactly.
and an honest mistake or a lack of clarity is one thing, but when you're talking to someone, they ask you to refer to you in a specific way. Like someone says, "Call me doctor," and you say,
Yeah,
"No, Ted," or "No,
yeah,
Bob." No,
right.
you're. Well, I'm a doctor. Well, no, you're Bob.
Yeah, it's
It's like
disrespectful.
disrespectful, and I feel
Right.
like it's more like that than it is like you're forcing me to call you. I don't
Yeah,
know. Like,
yeah.
what are you know?
I don't know. I never understood it, especially when it's your child and the things you read, and it's life or death to them. Like if you dead name her or misgender her on purpose and intentionally, that could really do some harm to her mental capacity and her headspace. I mean, I've heard horror stories of kids with their parents that either refuse to accept it or don't really know how to handle it at first.
Yeah,
And I mean, like trying to kill themselves, trying to harm themselves,
yeah,
trying to cut off body parts because they just are not. I'm not a boy. I'm not a girl.
yeah.
This is who I am. And so I was never going to be that person. I'm like, you want to be called. And again, it goes back to when I was pregnant and who she is as a person. You've met her. She's a force. You can't,
Yeah,
she picked her own name. And even though I said before we got it legally changed, I was like, the teachers have to call you Jameson because it's in Power School. They could call you Avery because that's your middle name, but that's also in Power School. Nope, Alexis. And I'm like, well, they can't call you Alexis because it's not in Power School. Now, once school starts, we can tell your teachers. And back then it was elementary. So
yeah,
there's one teacher, one main teacher. Well, sometimes the cafeteria would still call her Jameson. Again, it's in Power School. There's nothing I can do. If you want to go by Avery, let's have at it. Nope, nope, nope. So then when we finally did get her name changed,
so she had legally her name has changed.
it is, yes.
Okay.
When we went through the divorce during COVID, it was very expensive to get a name change. And she was so young that I was even still like, "Oh, let's make sure, you
Yeah.
know? But like I said, she came home one day, she picked her own name. I don't know where she got it, and that's who she is. So we were able to put it in the divorce papers. I wasn't changing my name, but I'm like, what if my daughter wants to change her name? And he was like, all right, $400. And we're like, sold. So instead of like 2 or 3 grand that it was going to cost. So yeah, it's legal now. And so now it's in Power School and on doctor's records and
So, and how
everywhere.
old is she now?
She's 11.
11.
Hmm.
So, what would you say to somebody that says like you're pushing this on her, or this is more being driven by you than by her?
I would say, have you met her, first of all? And my favorite line is, I can't even make her brush her teeth or pick up her room. So there's no way I could make her wear a dress if she didn't want to.
Yeah. I guess so. Then I know this is a question that a lot of people would have. Um, I would ask almost the opposite of that, which is, what would you say to someone who says, like, an 11-year-old, like, I don't trust my 13-year-old son to make any sort of
Right.
long-term positive decision because
Right.
he's a 13-year-old
Mhm.
boy.
I get it.
What would you say to someone who's like, hey, an 11-year-old isn't equipped to handle this kind of to make this kind of decision?
I would ask, when did you know you were a boy? I mean, did someone have to tell you at 5 or 6 or 7 or 11 that you were a boy?
No, I
Or
don't
did
think
you just
so.
know that?
Kind of just felt like that.
Yeah.
And you would say that felt she has that feeling.
Yeah. 100%. She's known who she was for a very long time.
Yeah.
And when she started to tell us, we had two choices: to listen or not listen. And when it started, it was, again, with the, okay, well, but if, yeah, so what if next week she decides, nah, I don't like dresses, I want to cut my hair short? Okay, I want my kid to know that I supported them no matter what
Right.
their passion was or how they felt.
You're just
And
trying to listen.
right, I'm
Yeah.
just listening, and you do you. As long as you're not, I've told my kids from the day they could talk, if you're not hurting yourself or anybody else, do you.
Yeah. I want to talk about the point of being in transition, but I also want to talk about just like that the fact that we're all, I mean, this is still kind of new, right? Like
Mhm.
20 years ago, you wouldn't be having this conversation with your daughter would be incredibly different than today because there's a lot of research and there's a lot of backing. Just even a portion of the of society is ready to defend the right to have these kind of conversations.
Mhm.
But I still think it's important to know that this is still really early. Like, for thousands of years we've been roaming the planet and we've only been having these conversations for like 10, less than
Right,
10, 5, really, 5 to 10.
right,
So
right.
it's still, I think, the pendulum is going to swing, and it may swing. We may find out in 10 or 20 years that, like, okay, maybe that wasn't the right thing to do.
Yeah.
But if we look back at this time, and this is where I feel like I want you to feel like I'm supporting you as a parent because I know you really care about your daughter.
Mhm.
And I want your daughter to feel supported by the community because she's a person who's struggling with identity and struggling with these there's no easy path for someone that has this kind of identity. I don't know what to call it, but an
Right.
identity issue.
No, yeah,
No
I
one's ever going
can't
to
even
wake up and be like,
imagine.
yes, like,
Yeah,
today is the day where, like,
right.
everything is snapping into, like, it's always a hard road.
Yeah,
And
I
it's
mean, everybody's been uncomfortable in their own skin
yeah.
at one point or another, and it's just like whatever you had to do to get past that, like weight issues or, me, I always had a big nose and got made fun of it in school, and now people are like, "You don't have a big nose." I'm like, "Well, in school it was a real big point of contention in elementary school, you
Yeah.
know?" So, I mean, whatever you had to do to get past it, I feel like it's the same. It really
Yeah.
is.
Well, and I think you've opened my eyes a lot to the kind of like the research about what happens if you deny this
Mm,
identity. It's almost like a terminal illness. Like, the stats aren't good.
yeah,
I don't know if
exactly.
you have any off the top of your head, but I know the suicide rate
Oh,
is
it's
crazy.
over 50 some percent in transgender kids that are not supported. I know that.
Is like the actual suicide rate or
Mhm.
attempted suicide?
Probably
Attempted.
attempted, but
That's terrible.
I'm not good on my facts, but
Yeah.
it's high enough to where I was like, we're doing this.
It's almost like
And
a safety thing. Like, if
yeah,
you like, it would be irresponsible to not
eh,
take
yeah,
it seriously.
exactly.
Yeah.
And you're not doing anything that can't be reversed. You're not doing anything permanent at this
So
age.
let's talk about that because I completely was not, unprepared. Still am for the most part. Like, scientifically, I'm the kind of
Same.
person that researches everything. I think you're similar.
I am.
Like,
Yeah.
I'll go into a rabbit hole and read for hours about nothing.
Right.
And I was really surprised at the approach that's being taken because in my head, especially when you hear the media, you kind of just assume that, um, to be crass, it's like you're cutting off body parts at 11 years old, and
No.
I was pleasantly surprised to see that's not really what's happening.
Right. Yes. We're
So tell me
not we're
about
not
that.
having surgeries at 11.
Yeah,
So yeah, I was shocked too and learning about it, and the first step is letting them socially transition. and and that's hard. And then when they get, so we're just now reaching that stage that right when they start puberty, and I believe it's Tanner stage 2 is the mark where they really want to get them on blockers before anything more starts to happen. We don't want facial hair, we don't want an Adam's apple,
Yeah.
we don't want our voice to deepen. And listen, doesn't everybody want to maybe skip puberty? I mean, so that's
It's
all
going to be
you're,
awkward no matter
yeah,
what.
exactly. So, but at this stage, that's all you do is you put them on, they're called blockers. So it's a 3-month injection once every 3 months. There's also an implant they can do. So there's different options and there's different meds.
And what does that do?
Stops puberty. It's a pause button. So she'll still grow tall. She'll still get her height. She just won't, go through puberty.
So
She
it
will.
basically it's just not going to push out. I always call it like the juice. It's like
Yes,
the real juice.
exactly.
It takes a
Uh-huh.
5'8" kid and turns him into a 6'3" man.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
With facial hair, back hair.
100%. As I said, I go, oh my gosh, you're not going to get acne like, real bad, probably. You're not going to,
Yeah.
she's not going to grow the facial hair. She's not going to, it's just a pause button.
So what happens then, at 15, 16, 17, 18,
So,
25?
well, that's, yeah. And then we go further down the rabbit hole because I believe the doctor said 3 to 4 years max was all they would do with the blockers. Because then you also have to imagine when she's a sophomore and she hasn't started growing boobs, and then it gets awkward. So at that point, we can choose to start female hormones so that she will maybe get a little bit of boob tissue. um, you know her features would soften. But if we took her off the blockers and didn't do anything, she would go through puberty and get male features.
Right.
So then you switch from the blockers, you go to the female hormones. Again, it's still reversible. If you stop those hormones,
You would go back
no
to,
big deal. Yeah.
yeah. Is there
Um,
any way to like, um, let's say, she turns 18 and says, you know what, I'm actually, I think I messed up. I really would like to be as much of a regular dude as possible.
mhm.
What is that possible?
I believe so. Again, I haven't crossed that line because we're still working on this blocker thing and
Uh-huh.
what that means. But I believe if she would to stop taking female hormones, that she would then get male features and go on to live a normal male life.
Yeah.
So there's nothing that can't be reversed in my mind, up until you have surgery.
Yeah.
So, and that's not happening until she's 18 or older.
Or older.
Yeah.
Is that something that you're strong in, or is that something that she's strong in, or what's the?
She's very much, she wants to have boobs so bad. Um, she's so intrigued with like periods, which I try to explain. I actually cried when I went to a movie with my mother-in-law. Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. And at the end of the movie, like the whole premise of the movie is these girls going through puberty and how close she is to her mom. And she finally gets her period. And I sat in the theater and bawled because I was like, I'm never going to have that moment with my daughter.
Right.
And I think it makes her sad that she'll never, which I try to tell her, listen, you got the best of both worlds, man. You don't have to deal with that. And you can get a boob job and nobody will know the difference. So, but yeah, she's very much, when can I have surgery? And I'm, when you're an adult, let's pump the brakes a little bit and, make sure I don't kill you for being a teenager right now
Yeah.
because
So I mean, we talked about how difficult it is for um, people that are in a household where that's not being accepted, it's not being tolerated.
Mhm.
Is there opposing or equally as important information about what happens when people are supportive and they are allowed to express themselves in the way that they find? Is that more positive? I imagine it's still not great, but
Yeah, I
just
mean,
because it's still a lot of, anytime kids have enough problems with their identity, let alone when you add in, gender to the mix, and
mhm.
and feelings of like all of the weight of society is bearing down on you.
Right, right. Well, and now with this new law, at least in North Carolina, it's a law. There's several that just went into effect that we're worried about, but teachers, they have to go by Power School now. It used to be in Charlotte, they could change your nickname in there. The teachers now, and they have to report to the families. If Alexis went to school and said, I'm Alexis, use she, her pronouns, they would have to report it to the parents.
That blows my mind, not because it's like, this is how I've heard the argument. You can't force me to call you she or her.
Hmm.
I shouldn't be forced to do that. And, you know, legally, I agree with that. Nobody should be forced to call anybody anything. Like, I
Right.
shouldn't, like, you're going to call me doctor.
Yes, yes.
But then they're taking that argument and then applying it in the exact opposite direction, because
Mhm.
what they're saying is you are forced to be being called however I
Yes,
think you should be called. And
exactly.
I'm like, well, that's just the same argument. That's the argument you're using against them, and you're using it for your own thing. If we wanted to be fair, we would say call people whatever you want to call them, but if you want to be respectful, use the term that they've
Right.
identified.
Or your preferred, even on, when you apply for a job, what's your preferred name?
Yeah. What's
Why
your
isn't
nickname?
it that easy?
I'm not going to call you Buddy.
Right, right, right. I mean, you never
I'm
want to
not going to
put
call you
something,
Matt. You're
yeah, call me
Matthew.
buddy at work. I mean, yeah, exactly. But why can't these kids, again, they know who they are. And it can be detrimental that these teachers are now
Yeah.
going to call home and inform these parents.
Yeah.
So, and it terrifies me for those kids. Like,
I don't know if anyone. This is just my opinion. I think I just say it because I say, like, I'm not decided on the issue. I'm not here to say that I have it all figured out, or I don't think anyone is. Like, no
no.
one's figuring it out. I just see people that are hurting and they're not being listened to,
Hmm.
and I think that is the real crime. It's not
Yeah,
it's not like forcing an agenda or someone's pushing agenda. It's that there is no such thing as a transgender person who's not a real person, who
right,
doesn't have a name,
right.
who doesn't have a story.
Yeah.
Every single one of these people have a story, and instead of painting everyone with a broad brush about who or why or how or what's going to happen, we just need to start listening to the people with the stories.
Hmm.
Because well, I'll just say my first encounter with somebody who I don't even know if they were necessarily trans. It was just someone. It was a man who liked to dress as a woman.
Hmm.
I think actually no, she was trans because she liked to be referred to by a girl's name.
Okay.
Um, but very clearly was not born as a
A female.
biological female.
Right, right.
um, it'd be like if I put on a dress. Like, I'm not fooling anybody.
Right. Well, and that's the point of
Yeah,
what was so detrimental in the past, that now we're having these conversations and we're getting these kids help, because otherwise you're going to live how you want to live. It's just, it doesn't match.
yeah,
And can you imagine, like, having to go through puberty and grow a beard and hide all of that, like, your whole life?
yeah. Well, I would like to think, and I'm optimistic when I watch my kids, because they're a lot less judgmental.
Hmm.
Like, they're a lot more open
Oh,
and willing to
kids are
accept.
so, they're like, okay.
So I think there's a lot of hope for just blind acceptance. I would like to think we get to the point, Nirvana is when, Alexis doesn't need to take something to look a certain way. People are just accepting of who she is
Right.
wherever, and that we're all comfortable with who we are and don't feel the need to put on masks or put on makeup or put on fancy clothes. We're just who we are, and I
Yeah.
think that's the goal of humanity, isn't it?
Yeah, but there's always, just like you said, there's makeup, there's Botox
It's
for
not
a
going to
reason,
happen.
there's nose jobs for a reason.
Yeah,
Everybody, that's how they want to look. I
yeah.
mean, no one's going out getting, some kids, their parents do. They take them to get lip injections and nose jobs, and I know so
Yeah,
many kids.
it's interesting. So, what would you want people that are maybe the people that won't say anything to your face, or maybe do say something to your face? What do you think? What's important for them to know?
I always just say, I would rather, like, when people do ask, I love that. Just ask. If you want to know something, don't assume something. We're happy to teach what we know, or at least share our experience. I don't know everything. I don't have all the answers. We're just day by day here. But, if you're just going to assume something, that's hurtful. And you wouldn't want us assuming anything about you and your family. Um,
Do you think that's fair to say for everybody in that situation, or do you think that's unique to you?
Yeah, it might be unique. I think a lot of people in my situation and a lot of families are willing to talk, and that's why there's places like PFLAG and things like that, and we've done interviews and, and we're willing to put our stories out there because we're willing to teach
Hmm.
and let you get to know us
Yeah.
and see that we're not these like zealot, like crazy people just, trying to like have sex changes on our kids when they're
Or
12.
forcing it upon other people that don't
Right,
want
right,
to.
yeah.
Like, would
Your kid should wear a dress too, by the way.
yeah, for avoidance of doubt, are you
Yeah,
recommending that
yeah.
anyone goes down this path?
Exactly. No,
It's
no.
not easy.
Not everybody looks good in a dress. And we've had that. We've had, well, what if because our boy is playing with Alexis, like he decides he wants to wear a dress. And I'm like, well, what if? Let him put on a dress. It's probably going to be uncomfortable and he ain't going to like it. Or hey, maybe he will, and maybe that's a good learning tool for you that your kid is.
Try a kilt.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, what? Yeah, a kilt. Wait, boys can wear skirts.
I
See,
think
so yeah. But I mean, I don't know. I guess I encourage people to ask and learn.
that's awesome.
And when they're hateful, I just that's on them, and I'm not going to change their minds, and I'm not going to get angry about it. I just choose not to be super close to those people. I've
Hmm.
stopped following some on Facebook. I'm cordial when we're out in the same group. This neighborhood. Um, but other than that,
I think I've mixed feelings about it because on one hand, I feel like you know you're the most uniquely qualified person to reach somebody like that because they might never. I have a lot of friends that have never. I mean, friends that live 5 minutes away that will talk about this as if it would never happen to somebody that they know.
right.
And it's really interesting because I feel, in a lot of ways, I feel lucky that we're so close because it allows me to have that personal connection that I normally wouldn't. And then, being super judgmental about that.
Yeah.
And so I feel like in some respects, it's like this is a great opportunity because you have the opportunity to reach somebody that would never get reached.
Right.
On the other hand, been having a lot of conversations with people that are, let's say, like the forgotten of society, or um, maybe the ones that the society views as less than.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a lot of people are just tired of having to fight the fight all the time,
Right.
and it becomes. Uh, I know it can become tiring if it's like every day you're in this battle of feeling like you have to be heard.
Yeah. And see, I guess I just don't feel that way. I think we've been really lucky. I think we're in a crazy bubble. I was super worried. I cried. I was embarrassed at first. Like, what are people going to think?
Yeah,
What are they going to think? When she wore her first bikini to a pool party, I was in the bathroom crying because I had never seen her so happy. And at the beginning of the day, I was so against her wearing this.
hmm,
And she just looked so beautiful. And we were around friends, and nothing bad happened. And I was crying because I was ashamed that I was ashamed. And it's like, God, just let her be who she's going to be. And we'll deal with the rest as
yeah.
it comes. And that's just, and that's why I think I'm very open about it. And I share what I can share just to help educate. And hey, this is what we're going through. And this is real. And she's a real person. And this is how I feel anybody would handle it. And if you have questions, ask
I
me.
know that's not true.
I get it.
Because
But
one of the things we going to Timeout Youth in Charlotte and hearing about all these kids that,
mhm,
like, they say, hey, mom, I think I might be a boy or I might be a girl, and they get kicked out, they
yeah,
get disowned,
I
kicked out
know.
of their house, disowned,
I
and
can't
like
fathom.
on now you're on the street,
Right.
and I that blows me away.
I know, me too. I don't, and I always say, people will be like, "You're such a good mom." I'm like, "No, I'm just a mom. I'm what a mom should be. I'm not doing anything." And I get that not everybody does this, and it's awful. But
I don't, for clarity, I don't think you're a good mom because you're listening to your kids. I mean, yes, I think that's awesome. But just in general, like if you had two totally normal,
right,
kids, I would think you're
cis
doing a
kids,
great
yeah,
job setting boundaries and dealing, like being a single mom and like setting boundaries and having to just discipline. Kids are tough.
yeah,
There is no
yeah.
easy
It
parenting.
doesn't ever feel like you're a good parent. I
Yeah.
never feel like I'm doing it right.
But I think that what you're doing, in terms of you just being willing to listen and put up with all the BS. I think that's commendable. That's not. I think that's above and beyond. I think a lot of people can't handle that.
Right. Well, and I guess I look at it as I'm here to raise the kids I was given, not the kids I want.
Yeah.
And because honestly, if I could pick my kids, I'd pick someone who's gonna like go on and win like a Nobel Peace Prize and make millions, but neither one of them are doing that. So and I also think, I'd rather have a daughter than a dead son.
Yeah.
That's all you can say. And look at these. I just don't understand the parents. Like, you'd rather have your kid not love you and not be at home
It doesn't. What upsets me the most about it is a lot of the times it's in the name of like religion, or it's in the name of God that this abomination shall not stand. I'm like, I'm not here to be your theology expert, but I don't want to serve a God who would tell you to disown your son because of the way that they feel.
Right.
That doesn't
Right.
feel like a loving. I wouldn't do that to my kids. If I'm a piece of crap.
Yeah.
Like, I'm super selfish, and I'm terrible. I know the kind of messed up stuff I do in my life. If I wouldn't do that, then I certainly wouldn't think that someone who's perfect would act much more patient.
Right.
I kind of thought that, like, going through the teenage years has been tough for us. And I remember I listened to this guy on YouTube who said, like, find something in your struggle as a parent to be grateful for, and not something that's easy. Right. And I think where I found the most gratefulness is realizing that as much as my kids will rebel against me, even though I'm trying my best to like keep them alive and keep them safe and have them live a good life, as much as they rebel against me, I'm like, oh, that's probably how I am. Like, God is sitting here watching me saying, hey, I really want you to have this good, perfect life, and don't do this and don't do that. You're going to hurt yourself. And here I am, like, you can't tell me what to do.
Exactly.
And I'm like, oh, I get it. And it helps me with my kids. It's like, look, your kids, they're living their own life. They're living their own world. They're living from their own perspective.
Yeah.
If you truly love them, then just stay course, be patient, love them, show them the love when you can. Yeah. And it's not always going to be easy.
Right. That's exactly the point. That's your one job as a parent. Just love your kid.
Love your kids to their BS.
All it is. Yeah. No matter what. Well, and it means you're doing something right if it's hard.
Yeah. I mean, it's never going to be easy. And I think what the big thing is, like you said, like, my expectations are changed. When I was young, I thought, oh, when I have kids, and they're going to grow up to be like, doctors and lawyers, and they're going to be great people, and blah. And like, as you go through these issues, and my expectations have changed. I'm like, I just want that before I breathe my last breath, that they are like, I still love my dad.
Yes. And I'm happy. And
that's it.
Yes. Yeah.
Fail college, or fail high school, fail out of school,
do what you need to do.
Whatever.
But yeah, as long as you end up as a good person, I don't care how we get there. Like, let's just talk about it and communicate. And it's always going to be hard. Do you not look back and go, oh, I'm so sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry, Dad.
Yeah. That was the thing that gets me. It's the toughest part about being a parent, is it's like, there is no promise that your kids will ever look at you and say, thanks, you did a great job, Mom.
Nope. There's no.
You can if you do a really great job, it might happen like when they're in their mid to late 20s. But I mean, realistically speaking, I mean, I think I was like 38 when I realized my parents did an amazing job, and I really need to stop blaming them for anything and start appreciating how much they did for me.
Exactly.
And then because you meet people, I don't care how bad of parents you have, there's someone worse. I promise you, I've heard stories that I can't fathom.
Exactly. But you know what I also appreciate is when you do hear those bad stories, I love that after 30, 40, at some point you got to stop blaming your parents and take responsibility for yourself, no matter how bad your parents were. So, and I think that's a good sign too, that, well, your parents may have sucked, but they did a pretty good job raising you. And now you realize you can move on and be the person you want to be.
Right.
So,
I think it doesn't take long for, like, you can have a terrible childhood. And if you are somehow able to acknowledge that, like, whatever has happened before, that's in the past, and I
Right.
get to choose how I live.
Exactly.
You can have children that will never grow up in a world that that person grew up in, and
Hmm.
can have a wildly different outlook. Like, it only takes one generation.
Yeah.
It only takes one, selfless parent to change multiple generations in the future.
Exactly.
And I think that, that's why I love what you're doing, and the
Right.
fact that you're open and willing to talk about it, I think, is awesome. So
Always. What else can we do? I honestly think, and I've said this so many times before, I think Alexis gets me more friends. I think people are curious, and I'm okay with that. And I think a lot of people do know my name, even if they don't know me. And I think it's because of her. And I'm okay with that. If I can change one person's mind or make you realize like she's just a kid like everybody else, I still have to yell at her to clean her room. That's all I'm here for.
well, I know definitively you've succeeded, because there's at least two people whose
See?
minds you've changed. So I appreciate
Exactly.
that.
I'm here to help.
And I go back to what you said at the start: coolest girl in school.
Yeah, she still is. Yes, and
Definitely
she
most
knows it.
popular.
She is. So I'm so popular this year. I'm like,
All right. Well, I think we did what we needed to do. So I
okay.
appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming
Thank
and
you.
talking.
This was fun.
Yeah, it started a little rough, but
Yeah,
we got it.
it's okay. We got the lighting. We got everything right.
Yeah, there we go. All right. Thanks.
Thank you.